Cool. Welcome, everyone. We're excited to have you on our next webinar. Your operations stack is costing you more than you think. As people start to filter in, just drop where you're tuning in from in the chat. I am live from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Let's see. Cool. Yeah, we're starting to get more people dropping in. Like I said, as you keep tuning in, drop where you're tuning in from in the chat. Today, we're going to unpack a challenge we see across nearly every scaling e-commerce brand. Your operations stack might be costing you more than you think. Brands today are selling everywhere from D2C, marketplace, social commerce, and every channel adds more complexity to your operations. So over the next hour, we're going to walk through the real cost of your disconnected operations and how brands are solving for this by partnering with the partners in the chat, ShipBob, Linnworks, and Crstl, to create a unified infrastructure and foundation that's ready to handle your next stage of growth. So before we get into it, I want to introduce our expert panel on today from, like I said, ShipBob, Linnworks, and Crstl. And if our speakers want to come off mute and introduce yourselves.
Yeah, I'm Tom Fowle. I'm the manager of solutions engineering here at ShipBob.
Hey guys, Kate Mortensen, product manager at Linnworks.
Hey everyone, I'm Teva. I'm the head of growth at Crstl.
Awesome. Yeah, excited to hear from you guys today. I think we've got a ton of brands that are looking to learn from you guys in the chat from all over the world. We've got London, California, Chicago, Michigan. So solid group in the audience. Don't forget to drop your questions for our speakers in the chat. We're going to be jumping into some Q&A at the end of the session. So we'll go through the content first, but just make sure to jot down your questions in the chat and we will definitely get to them. Before we get into the content though, I did want to take a quick poll, and this is my first poll that I've run, so hopefully this works. But the poll is, oh gosh, go to polls tab. How do I share this? Oh, it's not working, but maybe you could drop it in the chat or go over to the polls tab. How often do inventory and automation discrepancies cause issues for your team? We can use this to kind of shape the conversation as we go through the day. Maybe I need to actually stop sharing my screen and I can share the poll. Here we go. Okay, cool. Weekly and monthly. Yeah, that is what we hear a lot as well. So hopefully we can give you some ideas to walk away with just ways to streamline your operations and get your supply chain built as the foundation of your growth and all your tools chatting with each other. But weekly seems to be the winner here. Okay, cool. I'm going to stop sharing the poll and let me pull my screen back up with the slides. Here we go. Okay, cool. Well, Tom, I would like to bring you up on stage to go through how ShipBob is helping brands navigate operational discrepancies and create a more unified supply chain. So Kate and Teva, if you guys want to drop backstage. Tom, we're ready when you are.
Amazing. Before we dive in, if you're unfamiliar with ShipBob, we help brands fulfill their orders across all sales channels. We work with businesses of all sizes, providing them best-in-class supply chain capabilities. We're trusted by thousands of e-com brands like Vuori, Touchland, and OurPlace to build a scalable, affordable fulfillment solution. There are a few ways we stand out compared to other fulfillment partners. We provide exceptional carrier costs. We negotiate with all major carriers, so you save more on fulfillment costs. We provide global warehousing capabilities to help you scale seamlessly around the world. We support omni-channel fulfillment, so you can operate B2B and D2C from one dashboard. And we support customization at scale. You can create unforgettable unboxing experiences so your customers keep coming back. So when brands start scaling across channels, they often build their operation stack tool by tool. You add a fulfillment provider, then a marketplace connector, maybe add an automation layer, and then EDI or retail integrations. But those tools aren't always built to work together, and that's when brands start to see issues. Issues like inventory doesn't cross inventory doesn't sync across channels. D2C and B2B fulfillment is managed across multiple disconnected fulfillment partners. Any automation you tried setting up between them starts to show gaps, and you try and cover those gaps with manual processes, but that continues to cause breakdowns. These problems don't just slow teams down, they directly impact revenue. E-commerce brands lose an estimated 1.2 trillion globally every year to stockouts alone. More than half of online products go out of stock annually, and nearly 70% of shoppers won't wait for them to come back in stock before going to a competitor. In many cases, this isn't a demand problem, it's an infrastructure problem. And the challenge is getting harder as e-commerce becomes more complex. Most brands today aren't selling in just one place anymore. Each year, ShipBob surveys our merchants, and this year we found that 75% of brands plan to add a new sales channel. Nearly half plan to ship into new countries, and 77% already support B2B. Brands are actively exploring new channels and geos, but each new channel adds more inventory complexity, more fulfillment requirements, and integrations. The brands winning this year aren't the ones with the most tools, they're the ones whose tools work together. And that's exactly where ShipBob, Linnworks, and Crstl come together. Each platform solves a critical part of the operation stack, but when integrated together, they create a much more powerful supply chain. So fulfillment is the backbone of your business, and you need a strong partner to set the foundation for growth without eating at your margins with every order. ShipBob's network is built as one standardized system that's optimized to deliver faster transit at lower costs. We accomplish this through a unified network. We have 70 global sites across the US, Canada, UK, Europe, and Australia, and they're all powered by the same processes and technology. This creates consistency, accuracy, and the ability to launch new capabilities quickly. We have a hub and spoke design, and our model improves inbound receiving, sortation, and outbound performance. It also supports specialized needs like B2B, hazmat, temperature control, and any regulatory requirements. And then finally, our intelligent transportation. This layer is intelligent and flexible, and multi-carrier routing gives you continuity, accurate delivery estimates, and lower costs. Our carrier network isn't just diverse, it's strategically nimble. And we maintain relationships with multiple carriers to ensure continuity and optimize for cost and speed. So once your network is optimized, the next step is accurately executing inventory strategy. ShipBob's platform gives you smart placement recommendations to reduce shipping cost and increase delivery speed, sell-through and slow-moving analytics to optimize efficiency and prevent stockouts, custom replenishment alerts based on manufacturing lead time and inventory coverage preferences, and you can send one bulk inbound shipment to ShipBob, and we'll distribute it intelligently across our network, which reduces complexity and cost. By combining physical infrastructure with real-time data and smart automation, ShipBob gives brands full control over the most error-prone touchpoints in the supply chain. We also partner with leaders like Linnworks to easily plug into your current tech stack. That's how we turn fulfillment into a strategic advantage. And finally, this session today is all about connectivity. ShipBob connects into over 100 applications across the supply chain ecosystem, from e-commerce platforms and ERPs to shipping, returns, marketing, and customer support tools like Gorgeous. This level of connectivity means you're not locked into a rigid system. Whether you're using Shopify, NetSuite, Linnworks, or Crstl, or expanding into marketplaces and retail, ShipBob integrates seamlessly to keep your operations unified. And for fast-growing brands, this level of connectivity is critical. You can launch new channels, test new strategies, and scale without needing to rebuild your tech stack. An ecosystem approach gives you control, visibility, and agility so your fulfillment strategy evolves with your business, not against it. And Bloom said it best. ShipBob is the rare fulfillment partner that's already built the infrastructure that scaling brands will eventually need. As Bloom expanded into new geographies and channels, they didn't need to rip and replace their fulfillment strategy. They simply scaled within ShipBob's ecosystem. Now that we've covered integrated fulfillment, I'm excited to pass the mic to Kate from Linnworks, who will share tips to improve the inventory piece of your ops strategy.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tom. And that is the perfect setup for what we're seeing across the market as well. At Linnworks, we recently looked at operational trends across fast-growing e-commerce brands, and the findings echo almost exactly what ShipBob just described. At the start of this year, we conducted our annual State of Commerce Ops report, surveying over 500 mid-market retailers across the US and the UK, and with the majority of respondents coming from C-suite and senior operations leaders. The goal there was to understand how retailers actually performed operationally last year, and more importantly, what operational improvements they're prioritizing as they scale into 2026. So if you're interested in digging deeper into those findings, there's a QR code on the slide. Feel free to scan that and download the full report. We can make that available to you after this as well, the material that gets sent out. But one of the big themes we saw coming through that data was that automation, logistics coordination, and inventory accuracy are becoming the operational foundation of scalable growth. The numbers reinforce that. 89% of retailers reported moderate to significant year-over-year growth, yet only 37% of them report having excellent inventory visibility across their operations. So on top of that, we've got 45% of responders saying AI and automation integration is a major operational challenge for them, and 42% citing shipping cost inflation as a key pressure point. So the headline here is pretty simple. Growth is happening, but its infrastructure doesn't always keep up. And that gap between growth and infrastructure is where brands really start to feel operational drag. So what we consistently see is that as brands expand across channels, a few operational pressure points start emerging. The first is inventory synchronization, like Tom touched on. Once you're selling across multiple marketplaces, storefronts, regions, maybe even different industries, inventory stops being a static number and becomes something that needs to be coordinated across systems constantly. The second is fulfillment coordination. You might have a 3PL, internal warehouse operations, multiple carriers, and different service levels all needing to operate in sync with each other. The third pressure point is delivery expectations versus shipping costs. Customers expect faster delivery, but the cost of meeting those expectations continues to rise. So what's interesting is that the specific pain points vary slightly by market. In the UK, inventory challenges become especially pronounced when retailers are selling across 4 or more channels. In the US, fulfillment and logistics pressures tend to be higher on sellers' lists due to larger geographic coverage, more carriers, and higher expectations around delivery and speed. But the root cause of both of those is the same: disconnected operational systems. Inventory isn't talking to fulfillment, fulfillment doesn't talk to automation, and automation doesn't have full visibility into the workflow. So when those systems aren't connected, the burden shifts to your teams, which leads to manual work, workarounds, and constant firefighting. Which is exactly why we built Spotlight AI in Linnworks. Because when we talked to operational teams, one theme came up again and again. They know automation could help, and they know inefficiencies exist. They don't always know where the biggest operational leaks are. Which is where Spotlight AI comes in. You can think of it as a proactive automation coach for your operations stack. Instead of waiting for teams to identify inefficiencies manually, Spotlight AI continuously analyzes workflows across your operation, identifying manual tasks that are consuming time and show exactly how they could be automated. Importantly, it doesn't just say, hey, you should automate this. It quantifies the impact. How much time is it costing? How often does it happen? And what the automation opportunity actually looks like for you. But that's pretty powerful because operational drag often hides in small tasks, repeated thousands of times. Individually, they seem pretty small, but across hundreds or thousands of orders, they compound really quickly. What we're seeing with customers right now that are using Spotlight AI is that they're able to reclaim an average of about 52 hours per month by eliminating these hidden inefficiencies. Importantly, this isn't just a one-time improvement. As your business grows and complexity increases, Spotlight AI continues monitoring workflows and identifying the next layer of automation opportunities. So your operational efficiency evolves alongside your business. Now, once Spotlight AI identifies those automation opportunities, the next step is actually implementing them, which is where the rules engine inside of Linnworks comes from. Spotlight AI effectively highlights which operational decisions should be automated, and the rules engine is what allows teams to actually automate those decisions in practice. These rules handle things like automatically routing orders to the right warehouse, selecting the most cost-efficient carrier, or applying shipping rules based on destination or your order's value. So instead of somebody manually reviewing and deciding on each order action, the system handles it automatically. And the scale of impact here is pretty significant. So just last November alone, the rules engine made around 47 million automated decisions across our customers' operations. What that means in practical terms is that we removed 47 million opportunities for manual error. From operational workflows, if you assume it takes a person about 4 seconds to review and process one of those decisions, like where should this order go or how cheaply can I get it there while meeting the buyer's expectations, right? Those sorts of decisions. It takes about 4 seconds. That adds up to nearly 6 years worth of human working hours saved in a single month. So rather than hiring additional staff just to keep up with operational volume, businesses can redirect that time and budget toward what actually drives growth. Things like expanding into channels, improving customer experience, and scaling their business with confidence. And that's really the goal here, right? Using automation to remove operational drag so teams can focus on growth instead of repeated decision-making. So let me give you a quick real-world example. One of our customers, Dinergy Limited, was experiencing something very familiar for scaling brands. Sales were growing, but operations were becoming increasingly reactive. Their team was performing around 3,700 manual actions every month within their operational workflows. Spotlight AI identified automation opportunities and optimizing shipping rules. That number dropped to just 78 manual actions per month. And I want to pause there for a second to say, they went from doing something 3,700 times to doing it 78 times. Pretty significant, I think. So what that translates to for that user, for Dinergy Limited and their teams, 6 to 7 hours saved each week, thousands of pounds saved monthly through shipping optimizations, and significantly more operational confidence as they scale. One comment from their operations leader really stuck out with me. They said that they weren't just sitting on their data anymore. They were actively using insights to drive their business forward and focusing on what comes next. And that's really the shift we want to help brands make, from reactive operations to proactive growth. So based on what we're seeing across thousands of brands, there's a few operational principles that consistently help businesses scale effectively. First up, automating the decisions that slow you down. Many operational delays come from small decision points repeated hundreds of times a day. Things like routing orders, selecting carriers, or applying shipping rules. And one thing I want to say before we talk about some of these other points is we're using the word decision here because a user has to decide what to do with that order. But what I want to point out is what they're actually doing is looking up information about something. They're performing a lookup on an order to get data about it to then decide where it goes. Lookups can be automated by a machine so that a human brain can be used actually solving problems and considering what comes next. So when we talk about decisions, I want you guys to remember that we're talking about things that can be automated. Automated lookups to confirm data and then perform an action if that data meets a set of criteria. I just wanted to focus on that for a second. The second point here, create a single source of truth for your inventory. This one's really important. Once inventory becomes fragmented across your systems, you're going to start seeing overselling, stockouts, and operational confusion. Third, we want to orchestrate fulfillment. We don't just want to execute it. Fulfillment should be connected dynamically to your orders, your inventory, carriers, and automation rules. Fourth, connect your systems before you expand into channels. One of the most common scaling mistakes is expanding into new marketplaces before operational infrastructure is ready for it. What ends up happening there is you get a little top heavy and your foundation isn't able to support that load. And so things can kind of start collapsing. And then finally, use AI to reduce friction, not add complexity. AI should simplify decisions and remove manual work, not create another tool that needs to be managed. What I want to say here really quickly about that last point is that Spotlight AI is a tool, right? We know that tools can't really swing themselves. So that AI tool works alongside you. It's not going to create those automated rules for you. It's meant to guide you. Here's the best decisions, or here's the decisions that you could offload from your plate. The user still has to create that rule, but I wanted to pause really quickly and just say with Spotlight AI, it's there to help you make decisions as a tool. So with that, I will pass back over to Lindsay, I believe. Oh, I'm so sorry, Teva. I'm passing over to you.
Thanks so much, Kate. Awesome. So if you're selling into retail, Target, Walmart, Whole Foods, whoever, you probably already know the pain with EDI. Every retailer has their own EDI requirements, their own connection method, their own way of doing things. And on the other side, you've got your ERP, your 3PL, maybe Linnworks or ShipBob, your Shopify store, your WMS, and none of these systems are natively talking to each other. When systems are disconnected, you run into all the issues Tom and Kate were mentioning earlier. Inventory doesn't sync, there are delays between partners, and manual processes cause breakdowns. So how does Crstl help? Crstl is the agentic commerce network that sits in the middle and connects all your systems. On the left-hand side, Crstl connects you to any trading partner you need, primarily via EDI, but we can support other connectivity methods as well. Whether it's wholesale, dropship, direct store delivery, any of these are supported. On the right-hand side, you have your internal stack, your ERP, your WMS, inventory, etc. And we normalize everything, so your ops team isn't the integration layer, but instead Crstl is. We already have hundreds of retailers and distributors on our platform, and we add new ones every week as our customers continue to expand and grow. Since our customers sit across such a wide range of product categories like CPG, apparel, food and bev, manufacturing, and the list goes on, the range of retailers on our network also continues to expand in many different directions. So taking a step back, what is EDI? EDI is not a technology, it's a protocol. It was developed in the 1960s as a standardized way for supply chain partners to transact. Retailers communicating with you via EDI is similar to how in the modern business world, most people have agreed to do business in English so we can all understand each other. While there are many dialects of English depending on where you're from in the world, we can all understand these variations and communicate effectively. This is similar to how every retailer has its own variations and ways of speaking. If you want to sell into a Target or a Walmart, you don't have a choice. EDI is required. And while the flow is straightforward, the retailer sends you a purchase order, you acknowledge it, you ship it and send an ASN, and then you invoice it. It might all sound simple, but every retailer customizes the format. And if you get it wrong, you get chargebacks and you damage or even destroy your relationship with your retail partner. But by integrating with your ERP, your WMS, e-commerce platforms, or any other system, Crstl helps reduce the manual work, the risk of compliance errors, and chargebacks. And this is how we fully deliver a connected supply chain from the time the retailer places the order to the time you send back your invoice and complete the order to cash workflow. So what do scaling brands actually need for omnichannel growth? Our earliest customers came to us as migrations. They were brands that were already selling into retail, already had an EDI provider, and were hitting a wall. So we built our platform to solve the exact pain points that drove those brands to switch. But for now, I want to focus on two things that really set us apart and drive automation: our proprietary vendor compliance APIs and Edison, our AI agent. So first of all, on the proprietary vendor compliance APIs. Most platforms give you an API that validates whether your data conforms to their schema. But with our vendor compliance APIs, we take it a step further by validating your EDI documents against each retailer's specific compliance rules before anything goes out the door. So you can send clean, normalized data through one consistent API, and Crstl handles the translation, validation, and transmission for every trading partner, whether that's Target, Walmart, Nordstrom, or any others. It's a bidirectional compliance layer between your ERP or WMS and your retail partners, helping you automate workflows and save your team major ops headaches. Next, I want to talk about Edison, our AI agent built directly into your EDI workflows. Think of it as an always-on compliance expert that speaks plain English. Instead of digging through 100-page retailer PDFs or chasing down tribal knowledge to decode these cryptic error codes, you can simply ask Edison a question like, does Walmart require a pallet count on an ASN? And you'll get an instant accurate answer. It validates your mission critical documents against each trading partner's specific rules in real time, catching errors before they're sent. Edison is watching your purchase orders come in and checking them across the retailer's current requirements. It's catching mismatches in ship windows flagging label issues, and surfacing exceptions that would normally only get found after a chargeback hits. Think of it as having a compliance analyst on your team that never sleeps and already knows every retailer's routing guide by heart. The combination of these two things, the proprietary APIs that stay current with every trading partner, plus an AI agent that's proactively auditing your workflows, that's what's actually changing the economics and the total cost of ownership for an ops team. You go from reactive firefighting mode to a system that handles compliance by default. So to bring it all together, this is what it looks like inside the platform. EDI compliance, intelligent UI, our Edison AI agent, GS1 labels, custom mappings, and the product catalog. These aren't separate tools you're stitching together. It's one platform that handles the full workflow from the moment a retailer sends a PO to the moment you send your invoice back and prepare to get that cash flow. This is why the leading brands are running their B2B operations on Crstl today. They'd been dealing with all the challenges that Tom and Kate were describing earlier, disconnected systems, manual processes, compliance headaches. And now with Crstl, it's automated. So to recap, by using Crstl, brands are able to increase operational efficiency without growing their headcount, and they can focus on the areas that actually drive growth across their business. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Lindsay.
Cool. Yeah, I think we're on our last slide of the presentation before we get into Q&A. So please drop your questions in the chat. We'll get to them in a minute. But to recap, when you take the step back, the full operations stack should ideally look like this. At the foundation is ShipBob's fulfillment infrastructure, our warehouses, transportation network, fulfillment technology. Layered on top of that is inventory and order management through Linnworks. And then Crstl connects the automation layer, ensuring orders, inventory, retail integrations are all flowing seamlessly across your entire stack and closing the loop. So together, this creates real-time visibility across every channel, automated workflows between systems, and fulfillment that scales without that operational friction. So instead of stitching together disconnected tools, brands can operate from one connected infrastructure. So if our speakers want to join us back on stage for Q&A, I do want to launch our last poll as we wait for some questions to come in. So here we go. I'm going to close our last poll, open the next poll. So if you go over to the polls tab, after today, how likely are you to evaluate your current ops stack? I think all three of our speakers provided some really solid tips and insights into how to connect your systems, why you should connect your systems, and how a connected foundation really gives you the, base layer you need to really scale your brand if you have, and most brands do, plans to scale in 2026. So it looks like we've got some good votes on very likely evaluating your ops stack. We would love to connect. I know for ShipBob, if you click that book a demo button, you'll get connected with our team. Kate and Teva, if you want to drop in the chat where teams can connect with your companies and get more information on automating inventory and EDI connections. Awesome. So definitely connect with the teams. They're leaving their information in the chat. I'm going to stop sharing the poll, but you can keep voting over in that polls tab. And I did have a few questions that I wanted to pose to our speakers. So we talked a lot about this. I think everyone did a good job about outlining, where systems break down, but I'm curious, what are the first signs that a brand should start picking up on and noticing that their systems are holding them back? And want to kind of go through the list from fulfillment, inventory, and EDI automation. What would be your advice to these brands on the call? What's the first sign that their systems are holding them back that they should keep an eye out for?
Yeah, I can start this one. It's usually inventory blind spots, any kind of manual workarounds with something like a spreadsheet or siloed tools, and then starting to see your ops headcount climb without having any revenue lift to support it.
Awesome. Yeah, I know Kate had talked a bit about that too, where instead of adding more ops team members, maybe there's that disconnect of you're adding more people, but it's not becoming more efficient and your revenue's not growing at the clip that you want it to. But Kate, I can let you take it from the Linnworks side.
Yeah, thanks, Lindsay. I was going to add on to what Tom said because he's absolutely right, and say something that's a little more silent that you might not recognize. It's your team's morale. Walk out into the warehouse. What are they doing? Are they stressed? Are they stressed at the beginning of the day, middle of the day, and the end of the day? There's probably bottlenecks somewhere that's causing them that stress. Just walk out there, talk to them, see how they're feeling. That's a little bit more silent. And the reason I say that is I was speaking to one of our other users about the Spotlight AI, and he was saying it actually hasn't helped him find new areas to automate, but it uncovered where things were broken. And his team had been very silently on the floor fixing the errors a little bit at a time, and he had no idea what was happening. They were able to reduce the list of orders that they had that were open from 50,000 to 1,200 within a month, which is pretty crazy for their team. And he said their team morale has really picked up and people are like excited to be there and their days are easier. So just to add on to what Tom said, sometimes you can't see it unless you physically go and meet the people that are struggling.
Definitely. I think that's a really good call out. I think that's when Tom is probably very familiar with going through, he's visiting all of our sites all the time, chatting with the warehouse teams there. So definitely an important piece of the puzzle to make sure that those teams are also in the loop and connected. Teva, any insights from the Crstl side?
Yeah, I totally agree with what Tom and Kate were saying. And to add, if you actually look at what the workflows are that your team is completing and how many steps they're doing manually, where they're copy and pasting things between systems, and when there is an error, how long it takes to actually go trace that back because you don't have the visibility into that data. That's all so important to be looking out for. And sometimes we'll talk to brands that say, when we're showing them a demo of our platform and they see something that you could do in one click and they're like, oh, normally I do that in 40 steps. So if you think about how many steps it's taking you to get somewhere, I mean, first of all, that greatly brings down the team morale, but also that leaves so many places along the way where something could be completed incorrectly.
Definitely. I think in the same vein, my next question is, where do manual processes hide? I think we talked about what's the first telltale sign that your systems are disconnected, but where do the manual processes hide the longest before they start compounding and either creating disruptions or getting too expensive?
On the fulfillment side, it's usually an inventory reconciliation and replenishment. So running into overstock and stockouts. It's usually the biggest place that we hide is just not being lean enough or being too lean.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think something that we've seen from the Linnworks side in that regard is there's orders that can't proceed in their life cycle for some reason. Generally, or a big reason of that is inventory stockouts, like you mentioned, Tom. What can happen from there is you get more reactive behavior, like we've been talking about, where now a purchase order has to be placed. And how does that get coordinated with your receiving team? So when that item does arrive, how do you know that it's ready to be shipped out? Other than just seeing that there's now inventory to fulfill an order. There's steps in that workflow that need a lot of buy-in from different areas of your business, likely. And that can be, if you start to notice tension between those roles as they need to work with each other to get the order out the door, that can be where you see inventory problems. Yeah, Anna, just looking at the chat, month-end reporting, that gets pretty rough.
Yeah, Tom, I don't know if you have any tips. Anna in the chat said she identified a gap in their 3PL integration with Shopify that's impacting fulfillment processes and functionality. I know we have a direct integration with Shopify, so hopefully there aren't any gaps if you're working with ShipBob, but I don't know if you have any tips if they're working with another 3PL, how to maybe manage or mitigate that gap.
Yeah, I mean this is obviously a big gap in the process. You know, one of the things we built here at ShipBob is an inventory pushback into Shopify to provide the counts occurring in the warehouse within Shopify so that somebody's not manually updating those. So Anna, to your point, at the end, you're unable to be proactive without that pushback. So perhaps that's something that can be provided. Otherwise, you know, it leads to those manual processes that I spoke to before. They're not great, but having something that keeps track of your inventory outside of those places may help. But as we said, that leads to breakdown. So speaking to the 3PL, speaking to your integration partner, whoever that may be, to get that inventory pushed across all systems, that would be the recommendation. Yeah,
that's a good one to bring back to your 3PL partner, Anna. I And Teva, I don't want to miss you on this. What are the where a manual process is hiding the longest before they become expensive? I think with retail, it's pretty easy and expensive to see when it's not working because of chargebacks. But is there anything else that people should be keeping an eye out for?
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna hit on the chargebacks point that it's, I mean, it's sometimes brands even consider it part of the cost of doing business with these retailers, that they are just hit with these chargebacks for any, missing or incorrect field updates in the retailer's requirements that are missed by their providers, data not flowing through correctly between their systems. So pulling back the incorrect data to send the correct EDI compliance back to their trading partners. All of those lead to heavy chargebacks. So important to ensure all the data is accurate and flowing seamlessly between systems. And then related to that, a lot of brands think they can go for a while without actually integrating their systems, which in some cases, if your order volumes are low to start, maybe you can, and you can just fill out those fields manually. But quickly, as your order volumes grow, it becomes unsustainable to fill those out, not only for the point of not having errors in the data that's going back to the retailers, but also if you just think about the total cost of ownership there and the time and money that you're spending on having your employees go through and try to manually complete all those orders in systems and copy and paste across your tech stack. It's not a good use of time or cost.
Definitely. That's a good call out. And I think the biggest thing too, especially with retailers, is you had mentioned it in your session where you can essentially if you ruin your relationship with these retailers, it really impacts your ability when you become a more mature brand or you're scaling to actually get into Target. If, there were things that happened when you were first starting out that didn't go very well, and that can really impact growth long term.
Yeah, absolutely. And retail really is such a different muscle from D2C. So a lot of these brands that are even crushing it with their direct to store shipments or on Shopify, they just have to learn a whole new way of doing business when they start working with these retailers that have very strict requirements and very specific ways of doing things.
And maybe I can start with you for my final question. What's an operational mistake brands make when expanding into new channels too quickly? Is that maybe the top one, or are there other call outs?
It's a good question. Well, one thing I'm thinking of related to fulfillment and related to what I just said about it being a totally different muscle, D2C versus B2B, is ensuring you're working with partners that can also support your B2B capabilities. Since there are a lot of warehouse requirements around vendor compliance, routing guides, things like that. So ensuring that you have partners that can support everything that you need, GS1 labels, packing slips, all of that. So you don't just try to jump on your first opportunity to get a purchase order from one of these retailers and then it hits and you have no way to fulfill it and already destroy that relationship.
Kate, do you have any insights from the Linnworks side on that? Like from the inventory side, when people are expanding to new channels too quickly, what's one of the bigger mistakes that some people might overlook?
Yeah, very similar to what Teva said and following along from what she said. It is a brand new ball game, right? If you aren't familiar with the rules or the context of retail versus direct to consumer or even B2B, sometimes brands might think, I'm going to diversify and try a new revenue arm and see how it goes. But if you don't think about how that might impact your inventory on the back end of it, then you're making a mistake, right? Like stop before you proceed. You need to think about this. And what I really mean when I say that is, where does your inventory get allocated? If you are expanding into a new channel and you have consistently been selling through your stock at a clip that you are familiar with, if you don't rethink your purchasing plans before you expand to a new channel, then you're going to be looking at stock outs and trying to figure out, how do I orchestrate sending inventory to these channels? Which channel gives me the most revenue, so I should prioritize inventory there? Things like that. You can't know the future until you try, but there should be some effort to put into thinking about what might change and how you might need to forecast differently.
100%. And last but not least, Tom, do you have anything to add from the fulfillment perspective?
I think both Kate and Teva really, summarized all the things that I would say. Maybe to put it in my own words, with these B2B relationships, we want to make sure that a 3PL is supporting that growth, that they can meet that compliance, that they're not hurting the relationships by not being able to send inventory the way that retailers need it to. And then from that kind of inventory velocity piece that Kate was just speaking to, making sure that we understand how retail is going to eat through inventory the same way that D2C, and having great visuals in inventory velocity. A lot of these retailers in the beginning start as a trickle and then they become a flood very quickly. And we want to make sure as we're growing that you've got a great understanding of your manufacturing turns to support both of those channels.
Awesome. And I know there was one more question in the chat. I don't know if, Tom, there's anything else to add, but Jessica had asked, does ShipBob have automation alerts? And the answer is yes, we can support low stock alerts too. There's a lot that you can customize within our workflows and things. So if you have any other questions in terms of workflows or automations, don't hesitate to reach out. But thank you again to all of our speakers. I can give maybe 30 more seconds if there's another question to drop in the chat, but hopefully you walk away with some ideas of how to connect and streamline your supply chain for future growth. We covered the big foundational aspects of fulfillment, inventory, expanding to new channels. I think those are typically probably some of the larger pain points. That's what we tried to touch on for brands who are scaling today, and where you can run into a lot of roadblocks on your journey to grow. But if you have any questions for our speakers, you know where to find them. They drop their information in the chat. Like I mentioned in the beginning, the session is recorded. It will land in your inbox tomorrow, and we'll follow up with content, some of these reports that we had mentioned throughout the day. But thanks so much to our speakers. Appreciate your time today, and hopefully everyone has a good rest of your Thursday, and we will see you on the next one.
Thank you, everyone.